In this video we're going to be covering the Tools menu, and we've already gone over several of these items, but I'm going to just review some of the mesh tools briefly. In the mesh tools there's a slide edge. If I switch to edge mode, I can do that by clicking on the icon down here, or I can do Control Tab with my mouse over the 3D viewport and select edge. And I can grab one or more items there and click on slide edge to just move my mouse back and forth, and it'll run along the edge there. And I can do that with the verticals too as well. And you do notice that it changes geometry, but it still is trying to stay along those faces and the lines. Vertex works very similarly. If I switch to vertex mode, select one of the vertices, click on it, I can slide that up, sideways, so it'll slide vertically up and down along the line there. Got to get my mouse actually all the way over there because that's where I started activating that tool. And I can go horizontally across as well. I'm going to hit escape to undo that operation. Noise again is for texturing, so we aren't going to actually cover that right now. Smooth vertex is when you want it to take everything and bring it in closer, so it kind of averages everything out a little bit. I'm going to do A to select all on this model, and if I click smooth vertex, see how it brought everything in a little bit closer together. Randomize, if I click on randomize, it'll actually spread the vertices out to where, well, in this case it almost looks like it crashed, but you can use it for helping design terrain, giving some random elements to things, some different options there. In this next section we have the add tools. I'm going to go to where it says extrude, and I'm going to select some areas along the bottom here. I'm just going to grab those, and I'm going to grab the same ones on the other side. In the future I'll teach you how to mirror both sides of items, so you only have to do edits on one side of the shape to make them happen on both sides. But for right now, we're going to go to, I do have some different extrude options here, but I'm going to say extrude region and pull that down. And then I'm going to go ahead and do extrude individual and pull that down a little bit. In this case, that extrude individual actually took those as all separate sections following the normals, whereas before it kept them linked as I extruded them down. In my edit mode, just to play around with my shape a little bit as I go and do this, I encourage you guys to, again, experiment, try things out. Don't just go through the tools, try the tools in relation to each other. I'm going to go to where it says individual origins, and so it's going to treat each of these separately. So if I scale, instead of scaling it as one piece, it's going to scale them all from each individual center. So if I hit S and pull those together like so, I now have them all going down and looking that way. I'm going to go ahead and hit A to deselect, and as we go through the options here, there's also this inset faces, and that's something that you might see in programs like SketchUp where it's called offset or it's called inset. I always say inset when I'm in SketchUp and offset when I'm here. So I'm going to go and click on a few panels here. Maybe I'll click on all of those, maybe even these down here. Whatever region you select, whether it's one or more, I can hit I to get the inset, or I can click on the button there. If you click on the button there, then your mouse is stuck really far away. So here I can only go in. If I'm going to click on this panel, I'm going to hit I, and Yeah, so I could bring it in if I want. Can't really go and make it larger though. I could I could scale it afterwards and make it go beyond what I had there, but don't know if that would be useful or not. Depends on what you're doing, of course. I'm going to go down to this one that says make edge or face, and if I hover over it, you notice it says shortcut F. If, for instance, let's say that this was gone, I'm going to hit delete, and I'm going to say delete face, and let's say that I had a hole there and I wanted to join it. I could switch to edge, or I could even select vertices if I wanted to, and I select both of those lines. If I hit F, it will fill that, it'll join the vertices where they're at. Works pretty well. You can also do, if you just do two vertices that are separated, then it'll draw a line between them. So that's a very useful tool. Subdivide will split things up, and this can act a little bit differently sometimes in shapes. It's really easy to do with a cube, just because in a cube it's just going to equally separate everything. If you do only one side of the cube, it starts to maybe act a little bit differently sometimes. I'm going to hit subdivide here. There, divided it nicely into fourths. Down here I can tell it number of cuts, so I give it a lot of cuts if I wanted a lot of detail there. Okay, totally up to whatever your purpose is, of course, for this. I'm going to hit E and extrude it down a little bit. There we go. So a way to add more detail to it. There's other ways as well. I'm going to go down to where it says loop, cut, and slide. We've already used this tool a little bit too as well. But if I click on it, I can just, wherever I run it over is where it'll see. And then, of course, if I click in an area, it'll let me slide that edge back and forth. But you notice in this case, it's not changing any of the geometries I'm sliding that. It's just determining where to place it. If I click my mouse, it'll place it. If I hit escape, it'll just put it right in the center. I'm going to undo that edge loop. If I do Control R again, and I hover over a place to put in edge loops, if I scroll up, I can add lots of edge loops. And so if I click here, and then if I move back and forth, I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. So now I have these edge loops here. Who knows? I might want those details there to do something with them. I'm going to go down to where it says offset edge slide. And in this case, I'd probably never remember that shortcut. And I'm going to go ahead and select these edges. And by the way, if you put in edge loops, it's automatically going to switch to edge select mode. So I'm going to go to where it says offset edge slide, and you can see that it's pulling two lines down from the ones that I selected, and you notice that they're going at different speeds as I move them up or down. In this case, what it's doing is it's taking the measurement of the really long one and the smaller one, and it's doing it as kind of a percentage. So here I'm 50% of the way on all of those, and there I'm 100% of the way. So there I'm 0% of the way. So it's doing that, figuring out where do I actually want to put those lines. Okay, and then duplicate, of course. Duplicate can be used for lots of different things, not only to make a duplicate object, but if you want to, say, have a model where you want things to be detached in edit mode, but you still want them separated, you could easily do that by selecting some surfaces, just like those in this case. And I'll do the same on the opposite side. If I do Shift D, I can duplicate there, or I can hit duplicate here, and once I hit duplicate, it's now in grab mode. So if I hit escape, it'll leave them exactly where they are. So I actually have the previous panels taking up the same space as the current ones, which Blender doesn't really have a problem with, If I rendered it like this and I had them different colors, it might do some really weird things. But again, I can go up to where it says extrude, and I can do extrude vertex normals, and now I just added a section that's not attached. Maybe in whatever I'm going to design, maybe I want these to be able to, I'm going to hit L for linked. Maybe I want this to be able to come off of the thing that I'm creating here. Okay. Maybe I want it to, just be able to move separately or independently if I put an armature in it, or a skeletal structure that I can actually make it mechanically move, or I can make it move more organically, like how a person or an animal might move. So I'm going to go down to where, actually for these last ones, I'm going to do this in a different video, so I'm going to go ahead and stop